Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.
Hello and welcome to the Women Today podcast. In the week that saw the birth of a royal baby, a UK general election and the anniversary of VE Day, Women Today took the opportunity to reflect on all these events and much more besides. For many, it was an exciting weekend, not just because of golf.
Well, obviously Diana.
Victoria. I just like the names and I think they sound quite royal.
Victoria.
Elizabeth.
Something nice, not something obscure.
Something floral, like fleur, or I don't know, something pretty, I think.
Elizabeth. After her great granny.
I think it probably will be traditional. Yeah, I think so. Probably like Elizabeth or something like that, I would have thought.
Probably a royal name from way back, maybe there would be.
Oh, Diana.
Just what they think's right for them.
Well, nobody we spoke to on the streets of Douglas guessed the name right, but there were a few on the Women Today Facebook page. We are, of course, talking about the birth of the newest member of the royal family, Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte of Cambridge. The fourth in line to the throne was born on Saturday morning in London's St Mary's Hospital, weighing in at 8 pounds 3 ounces. Her full name, Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. Historians and writers say the traditional royal name of Charlotte acknowledges her regal heritage, and royal journalist Roya Nikar thinks her middle names are a nod to the important women in William's life.
His mother and his grandmother. And I think the fact that it still goes to show that when you're naming a royal baby, it's still the royal person in that family. It's effectively William's choice. Those are names that are significant to William, not necessarily so much to Kate, although I'm sure she loved them. But the fact that it's a nod to the women in his family, I think is significant.
So, Princess Charlotte of Cambridge. Jo, were you excited about the royal birth?
I have to say I wasn't excited about it. Something I do find quite funny though, on Saturday morning, the breakfast show, I asked Jason Roberts what he thought from our newsroom, what he was going to call the baby if it was obviously born this weekend, and it was a couple of hours later. And he said Hoover. Goodness knows why on earth he named that Hoover.
I'm not sure we even want to go there, to be honest. I can't think of any
Couldn't stand that one
possible.
at all. But no, I have to say I wasn't that excited. She's beautiful, but...
I wasn't really very excited.
Oh, come on, guys.
No, I'm really sorry. I want to be excited, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not a massive fan of the royal family, if I'm honest. I think, really, I'm not sure that in 2015 there is a place for royalty and kind of supposed superiority based on blood, but I do love a bit of pomp and ceremony. So I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I loved the royal wedding.
Jed, were you excited?
I think it was a fascinating story, with the name Diana. I mean, that was what was on everyone's mind, really, and how they dealt with that. But I'm pleased with with the couple, because they seem to connect very well with the British public, regardless of what your views are about royalty and so forth.
Wouldn't you be annoyed that if you'd had a baby at the end of last week and called her Charlotte, and everyone's going to assume you were copying Kate and Will?
I think that's inevitable, but remember, there's plenty of Britneys and Courtneys and what have you out there. So
oh yes, you were very helpfully gave us a suggestion on the Women Today Facebook page about what you thought she was going to be called. Would you like to share that with us now?
Well, I think to relate perfectly with perhaps the British public in general, there could have been more popular names chosen, but we'll leave that for the listeners to look on your Facebook page. Thank you very much.
And what I would say, right, obviously I wasn't brought up in a family that were big fans of the royals, and my dad actually turned to me on yesterday morning and said, Kate Middleton, was she on the X Factor? Oh. Shows the level of involvement in the Holland household.
Don't think you're getting fed tonight now you've announced that on air.
We should say congratulations to Annabelle and Jane, who did get the name right on the Women's Day Facebook page. But another story that was huge this weekend when the royals left hospital with their new baby in tow was the fact that when Kate and Will left and posed for the world's media with the princess on the hospital steps, Princess Catherine was actually criticised for looking too good after the birth. Now, the Mirror reported wearing a beautiful Jenny Packman dress and heels, and with her hair styled perfection, Kate looked relaxed and beautiful. Those on Twitter said things like, how does she do it? Someone explain. Many stating it's not fair. And in fact, the princess's good looks have led to a bizarre conspiracy theory in Russia. I absolutely love this one. A pro-Kremlin newspaper reported the story that it was impossible for the Duchess of Cambridge to look so good immediately after the birth, and questioned, in fact, whether the baby had been born days before. So we're asking this afternoon what you think. Is it really fair to criticise the princess for looking too good?
Oh, she can't win, can she? If she looks awful, people are like, oh, she looks awful. She looks good, and people say she looks too good. who can blame her for having a hair done and a makeup done when she's going to be faced with that many photographers?
I think it would be fair to say that given the fact she had given birth less than 12 hours before, there was probably nowhere she would least like to have been than standing on the steps waving at the people. But, you know, the British public loved this fairy tale of the royal family, and, you know, she is essentially giving them what they wanted.
She looked absolutely stunning, and you know, I do feel very sorry for her because, as you say, Beth, I'm sure, I mean, I know after giving birth to 2 children, there's no way in the world I'd be wanting to stand on a step in heels, can I say, facing the media, but she knows that she has to do this, and therefore she's obviously got everyone in place to help her with that. I just hope she was able to get back to wherever she was going and put her pyjamas on and just completely relax.
That's what you need, your comfy trousers and a load of biscuits. Honestly, I think it's fair to say she did have a team of people who were, you know, helping her look her best. But who wouldn't want that when you are going to be faced with the world's media, Jed?
Well, I think, you know, she's been in the spotlight for years now, but she's beautiful, let's face it, and I think she'd look good in any situation. But, you know, fair play to her. I think for a couple, they do purport themselves very well.
I just think it's just so interesting, isn't it, to see the reaction. And now we are in this world of social media where you just have these articles and people commenting on it. And some of the comments were really, really awful.
Well, that's what I mean. She couldn't win, could she? Last year, when she had Prince George, people were like, oh, well, she still has a bump. And some people were applauding her for being so honest and real about that. And other people were saying, well, couldn't she have covered up a little more? And she just can't win in that situation where there are so many eyes on you. I think she's a braver woman than I.
There are some people who say that her showing such a fantastic image so little time after giving birth is bad for other new mothers. What do you think, Jo?
I don't think so. I think she's just naturally that way inclined. I think that, you know, Beth, I'm sure I speak on behalf of you when, you know, you're tiny. When you had your babies, I'm sure that you came out of the hospital looking as if you hadn't just given birth. You know?
Absolutely gorgeous.
Whereas
Standing on the steps, waving, nobody was there. It's quite sad,
you
really.
know, I mean, what right does anybody have to comment on her figure, on the way she looked? They just don't have the right to comment on her. You know, she's credible and she's a complete role model, isn't she? She really is a role model. And I just hope people now respect her privacy and just give her a bit of time off to maybe munch a few takeaways and, you know, enjoy her time.
We've had a text in from Jenny who says, with the cost of private healthcare being what it is there any surprise that Kate and the new princess left so soon? Very true. Kate, we've had a lot of comments on the Women's Day Facebook page on this one.
We certainly have. People have a lot of opinions about this. Just going to go through a few of them. Michelle says, I think people should keep their negative comments to themselves. Give her a break. Her life is easy. On the inside, she probably just wants to sleep and eat hobnobs. But the whole world is waiting for her to appear with the new princess. Cut her some slack. And Ali says as well, people need to stop comparing her to the everyday woman. She's not. She's a member of the royal family with a team of people whose job it is to make her look great. How many of us had to stand at the front of the hospital after giving birth to show the world our precious newborn baby? None. However, if we had, I'm sure there would have been a team of people making us look great too. I admire everything about this young lady and the way she has taken to being a royal.
Annette says, why should it matter what she looks like? Are people asking the same question about her husband? Very good point. Leave the poor girl alone, says Lorraine. She's an absolute beauty. And Sonia says, the wonders of makeup to hide dark eyes. We've also had a text in from Frank. I think it's fantastic that Kate has returned home after only 12 hours. Just think, the dishes won't have piled up, neither will the ironing. To what extreme lengths will people go to lose weight? Well, that's what we're asking this afternoon, as Interpol has issued a global alert over the use of potentially lethal diet pills. Eloise Parry from Shropshire died last month after taking tablets thought to contain the highly toxic chemical DNP, which has been used in explosives. A Frenchman has also been left critically ill after taking them. Here's what Eloise's mother Fiona said just after her daughter's death.
By the time she realised something was wrong, it was already too late. This is a really nasty drug. Once it's in your system, there is nothing that will get it out again.
Eloise Parry was just 21 years old when she died. Here's her mother again, speaking yesterday.
It has been used as an explosive, and it's not something that people should really consider consuming. I wouldn't suggest for one moment that anybody should take it, but unless somebody tells you that, you're not going to know if it's marketed as suitable for consumption. I would just be so pleased if we could make a difference for even one person to stop it happening to somebody else. That's all I want out of this.
So the global alert issued by Interpol about the dangers of diet pills has been issued to police forces in 190 countries. They declared DNP as an imminent threat to those who consume it, and online distributors have tried to mask its supply from customs and police officers by labelling it as the yellow spice turmeric because it looks similar, according to Interpol. Niyal Patel from the Royal Pharmaceutical Society says people should be wary of what they're buying.
I think the message for the public is don't go to websites that offer you miracle cures. If it seems really easy to get hold of these products, really be aware that they could contain, unfortunately, these deadly substances that have caused such tragic cases in the UK and elsewhere.
That's Niyal Patel from the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. I mean, this is just absolutely terrifying. Jo, you have been open about the fact that you lost a considerable amount of weight a few years ago. Were you ever tempted by things like diet pills?
Oh, for sure. And unfortunately, I'm going to be really honest about it. And I was after that quick fix a lot of the time because sensible diets mean that you lose weight slowly over a long period of time. And, if you're going on a holiday or if you've got an event coming up, you'd want to, I'm going to admit I took water retention tablets to lose weight before a ball. I remember doing that. And how silly was I back in the day thinking about it. But it's purely because you want that quick fix. I would never do it now, but I can totally understand why people do it.
I'm with you, Jo. I can horrifyingly and terrifyingly, I can absolutely see why people are attracted to things like diet pills. And you think it is going to be a quick fix, but I think it's so worrying that we can get to a point where being thin just seems like the answer to everything, even to the point where we're knowing that we're risking our lives.
Ruth?
I suppose, I wouldn't be attracted to the idea of it myself, but I can see how people would be because, as you say, Jo, it's like if people want to get quickly thin for a holiday or whatever, or, start losing weight rapidly, then but I don't know,
I was really pleased to see, I was reading an article in Good Housekeeping the other week, and I was so excited to see that they did this survey about what makes you truly happy. And in actual fact, I think it was like 87% of people said that a good night's sleep meant that they were happy, compared to 13% saying to be thin. And that was such a turnaround. It was great.
But I think the problem is when you start thinking about your weight, be it that you're too thin, too fat, too whatever, it is all consuming, and it's difficult to see how you can be happy in the body that you have.
I think the scary thing here is that we're talking about tablets which are so easily accessible now. You can go onto the internet and buy almost anything, but to what extent ever do you know that they will do what they say they will, that they even contain what they say they will? And how many more cases of things like this are we going to see?
My friend's daughter was telling me that her 13-year-old came home asking about a certain, I can't remember what it was, but a certain nutritional pill because her friend was taking it because apparently it speeded up the metabolism. And, they're 13 and they're thinking about this. And that's scary because they can buy them off the internet themselves and they don't know what's in them. So, what extent do these girls go to?
Herbal pills that would perhaps speed up your metabolism or suppress your appetite, because a lot of people, for everything they want to buy, go online and get a cheaper version and get a bargain. But when you're buying something online and it's coming from a source that you don't know whether it's being regulated properly, that is so scary. And I just wonder if there's enough education that tells people that they need to be looking actually what is in what they're taking.
It's interesting, some people hear the word herbal and they automatically think it's healthy.
That's right. Yes, it was kelp. It was kelp tablets, actually. Yeah, so you're right. You think of kelp and you think, oh, that must be healthy, but you don't know if it is kelp that's actually in it.
I just wonder if it's all down to the fact that we would rather look well than feel well. Ultimately, it is, again, as we always keep coming back to, all about the image.
I think it's also that there's definitely an attitude whenever you read a story like this or hear something on the radio about it that you go, gosh, that yeah, there is a risk and that's terrifying, but I'll be okay. That wouldn't happen to me, especially when you're younger and you have this idea that you are entirely invincible.
We're joined this afternoon by Jed Power, Loney Evans and now Dawn Killer, all from Castletown Golf Links. Dawn, we were talking to Jed and Loney a little bit earlier about how they first got into golf. What's your story? How did you get involved in the game?
Well, I started about 25 years ago when my son was 3, and after 6 months I had to give it up because he developed asthma. And coming to the Isle of Man, at the ripe age of 55, I started again once he finished school.
Now, I think to all of you, I'd say this. I think it would be fair to say that golf is traditionally seen as a man's sport. I mean, the idea, I don't know, that they take as long as they possibly could to get round the course, sink a few in the 19th afterwards. How accurate, Jed, is that image these days?
Certainly when I started the game, that was the branding really of golf, but it has changed dramatically, and it has had to adapt now with, other sports and pursuits that people can get involved in. So golf has had to change its identity, and I've seen it right across the Isle of Man. And you look at the prevalence, say, of successful lady golfers and growing lady memberships, and how we address that, and we say having mixed competitions and its fairness right across the board. So it's a real step the right way, obviously.
It's interesting what Dawn was saying, though, because I mean it's pretty difficult for a woman who has got young children to find enough time to get out and play, I guess. Indeed. And the role of the mother and the family and childcare and so forth has adapted very much, hasn't it, in the last 20 years. And we know that, the ladies, the mothers in the families have got to find time to exercise and have, leisure time to themselves or with their friends and so forth. And it's important that, it could be that they go to the gym or they go, walking, cycling and so forth, and that golf on the Isle of Man is another option, and it's proven to be very successful because it kind of ticks a lot of boxes, being out in the fresh air, exercise, competition, and it's proven very popular. Now, early this month, the veteran BBC commentator Peter Allis said that attempts to give women equal rights in golf have caused mayhem and basically ruined the game for a lot of people. I don't know what you all think about what he said, Loney.
I haven't revisited that article, but I saw it on the day it came out, and he made a comment, something like the women were also opposed to it because they've now lost their benefits of using the clubhouse for free and all that. And I couldn't believe it, actually. It's such a old and view of what women want. Women in society are very independent, they don't rely on their husbands to get benefits like that for free. I think that he needs a reality check, to be honest. Jed?
The man's a buffoon for making that remark. It's as simple as that. But let's face it, he's in his 80s, I think, now. So he's probably got some ancient attitudes that should be put to bed. So in terms of the course then being welcoming to all, I wonder if there's still a perception that golf is almost, I don't know, like an elitist sport that only people of a certain class, if you've got a certain amount of money, can actually get into. I mean, I'd say that, the cost of a golf membership is, say, cheaper than going to the gym. And certainly when you look around the Isle of Man and you look at the makeup of the members, I've never seen any class differentials at all. You still need your clubs and your clothes, though, don't you? Well, you do with any pursuit, really. You look at cycling and how expensive that can be. But there's always equipment available, people to give a helping hand. And, the golf clubs are very welcoming. Now, the island has got some incredibly promising female talent in golf. I mean, can you give us an idea of who the rising stars are? Well, at the moment, you've always got Emma Harris. She's really top of the tree, and she's competed at a very high level in the UK. But you've got to take your hat off to Peel Golf Club and the output there with some fantastic talent, and of course you see in the press how well they're doing in the UK. So it's very pleasing. Now, the focus when we talk about people getting into golf, particularly young people, is on how good they are at competition. But Dawn, what is it for you that gets you out onto the course? Is it the competition, or is it just going out to, I don't know, while away a few hours?
Well, I think for me it's actually just getting out there. I don't like gym at all. So for me it's great exercise, and obviously the friendship the friends you meet on the golf course, I mean, that's absolutely wonderful. I have a lot of friends now that I've never had before on the island. All lovely golfers, golf ladies and gentlemen. No, I really enjoyed being out on the course.
Loni, what sort of skills do you need then to be a golfer? Joe and I were just wondering about this, actually.
Do you know, I don't think because there's so much involved in golf, you know, you can be a long hitter or you could be a good putter. I don't think there's a specific skill, but I think it's quite a mental game, you know, you have to be prepared to stick it out, you know, even if you don't succeed. And week to week is different, you know. So you could score 40 points and then you could score 18. It's great fun because it always makes you want to go back for more, you know, try harder.
I mean, Jed, you said that you started, about age 14? It
Yeah.
seems to be something you either get into at a young age or maybe slightly older.
It is. I think it's opportunity and awareness and having that time. But the good thing about, say, the handicapping system is that everyone can have a chance of winning the competition. And it's been fantastic at Castletown because we've had a group of ladies that have gone through the academy and they've been, you know, trying the best over the winter and practicing and having lessons, and then just in the last few weeks they start to feature in the prizes, and it's absolutely fantastic, isn't it, to see these new people in the game, and they're starting to pick up some valuable booty by coming in the top 5 and so forth.
You talked about your son and how you played computer games with him a little bit earlier in one of the breaks. Do you play golf with him?
Yes. I get out with him when I can. I think the weather's a big factor, and the football season is another one that's coming to a close at the moment. But it's a great family game, and that's one thing that's beautiful about golf is that it can be so inclusive, you know, and you can play with people who are in their 80s. You know, it's wonderful.
This is Women's Day on Manx Radio. It's a Women's Day special talking about women in Manx politics with me, Beth Espy, Kate Holland and Joe Pack. Any comments, email womensday@manxradio.com, or you can text 166 177. Thank you to those who have sent in comments so far, and we will get to as many of them as we can throughout the programme. Now, before the break, we were discussing why this issue matters at all and why more women typically don't stand. Now, the issue is not, as it may seem from the surface, that women simply aren't elected, because statistically the women who do stand have as much chance of being elected as their male counterparts. The fact is, not as many women stand, and today we are asking why. Now, President of Tynwald, Claire Christian, you are from a very political family. Your father was the first president of Tynwald. Your sister was Ramsey MHK and also held the positions of Education and then Treasury Minister. Do you think it's possible to say how much of an influence your upbringing had on you entering politics at all in the first place?
I guess it must have had some, although I'd never thought of politics as a career before I was approached for that by-election. And I dare say it helped too, because you knew a bit about election procedures, the practicalities of election operations and so on. So I guess that's got to be an advantage, yes.
Do you think it made it seem more accessible because of your upbringing?
It's possible. I think you need to ask the people who perhaps hadn't had that benefit to see what the obstacles were for them. But whoever you are, all candidates are standing there on their own, facing the electorate, whether they've got a background in it or not. And that's the tricky bit, deciding whether you're going to be prepared to do that.
Christine Mutton, how political was your upbringing?
Non-political. My parents were never into politics or anything like that. It was a decision I made through circumstances at the time that things were going on in the town of Peel, and I thought, this is where I want to be, and this is where I think I can be of benefit, and that was my reason for standing, and I actually embraced it for the last 34 years.
Well, we've asked the Women's Day focus group for their thoughts on why more women don't stand for election in the first place, and this is what they had to say.
I'd like to give you loads of science and facts, and it came down just to 2 words. First one, I think, is confidence. I think it's having the confidence. It makes no difference if you're male or female. You've got to have the confidence in yourself, and you've got to be a little bit thick-skinned, but you've also got to have the confidence to put your views and hope those views are taken on board. The second one, I think, is probably more important. That's time, and that is, even if you actually look at on a national election, it takes months to walk around and to actually get everything prepared. Even if you do nothing once you're elected, on a local level it takes weeks, and then you've got your time commitments, and I think they are the two crucial parts. You know, you have your confidence and your time.
Yeah, if I can sort of come in on that, because you are right, it's the time, but I think there's another element as well, and I think you're right about the traditional women's role. It still exists today, that women are the ones who are expected to put the family first. The men have the career. Women are allowed a career now. That's not open for argument, but you're still sort of secondary usually to the man's career. And how you fit canvassing and being in the political limelight, working late nights at Tynwald, different meetings, etc., and juggling family and a husband who's got probably a career as well, it's a very difficult one, and I think it's just too much for a lot of women. I think that's part of the big problem.
I would agree with that, as well as the confidence. You need a supportive network, even for women going out to work on an everyday basis. It's all right saying, well, the lady down the road will help. 6 months down the line, she might not be able to help, and if you have to go to work, that's one thing, and it's bad enough because you've got the feelings of guilt. But if you're in politics, you're there to help everybody else. And I think if you have a sort of a 12-hour day working, you can double it when it comes to politics, because you've got to be there a lot of the time.
It's so important to have a network around you and support. Before I decided to become a commissioner, you know, I spoke to my husband and my family and explained how much time would be involved, and that's just being a commissioner. But for example, Wednesday night we had our board meeting, started at 7 o'clock. I got home at 11:30 and I'm up for work the next day. You know, it's life goes on, and if you don't have that support from family and friends, you know, that's difficult. In Marown, I'm only the third woman commissioner since 1894.
Gosh.
OK, Christine Muckton, sometimes it's just too much for women. Do you agree with what you've just heard?
I put it down to prioritising. I've been married 45 years. My husband is my main priority, and my family were, but you learn to prioritise. I've had a working career, as well as being on the commissioners, as well as being chairman 3 times, which does take up a lot of time. And in the years when I was chairman, we had all committees to do as well. At the moment, we just have 2 meetings a month, but in previous years you would have 5. And you prioritise, and to make sure that you do have the support at home off your network. And it's basically good juggling.
What's been the impact, would you say, on your family because of your decision to be in local politics?
I think basically they are proud of what I do. There have been moments when people have inadvertently, because they have an issue, have either spoke to my husband about it, or my daughter or my son, and they've taken it quite lightly and referred them back. Christine's available, you know where we live, you know the phone number.
Claire Christian, what do you think of what the focus group was saying?
I agree with some of it, and in terms of confidence, I think there's been research that says that women don't put themselves forward for jobs, they wait to be invited to do them. So there's an element of that. As far as time goes, certainly in terms of the actual election itself, well, the time commitment to canvassing for an election is the same for both men and women, and this is where I think we've got to be careful not to use the gender argument. But this issue of who has what role in the family is still quite important. And I think we are over time going to see changing roles. The conditioning which girls experienced in the past is still there in many cases, and I think it's up to us as parents, both mothers and fathers, to be sure that we don't condition our children to go down certain avenues. The world should be their oyster, and any job should be available to them. And so we've got a job to do there too.
I wonder, though, about the perception that people maybe outside of Tynwald have, because you are obviously in a position of authority. Kate, we've had a comment on Facebook.
Yeah, Jackie says, can you ask Claire Christian why, as president of Tynwald, she allows the male members of Tynwald to show such disrespect to Brenda Cannell and Kate Beecroft, referring to Brenda as that woman, sneering at the comments they make. And Jackie continues, if Claire Christian took a stand for equality. She may actually do more to encourage women into Manx politics. How do you react to that, Claire?
Well, my reaction to that is that I try and treat all members equally. There is some cut and thrust in Tynwald. I don't think it's necessarily on a gender basis.
We give thanks to Almighty God for a great deliverance. Speaking from our empire's oldest capital city, a war battered, but never for one moment daunted or dismayed. Speaking from London, I ask you to join with me in that act of thanksgiving.
I remember the night. I remember that I was allowed to go out and into the Parliament Street in Ramsey and watch them dancing. Mr. Arthur Hughes had a radio shop along with an electrical shop right opposite Kermode's, and he put speakers out and he played records and they were all dancing and everybody was so happy and elated. It was absolutely thrilling.
Was there a big sense of relief?
Yes, definitely. Yes, everybody was so happy. Yes, it was lovely to see.
And your brother was away?
Yes, he was serving in the army. Yes, he was in Germany at that time. So we were looking forward to him being able to come home and leave.
Do you remember how your parents felt?
Yes, they were relieved. They didn't say very much. They didn't voice their opinions or kind of thing. They kept it to themselves. But they were glad. They were glad. We were so glad the war was over, though we didn't have the suffering like they had in England with the bombings and such like, but we were glad it was over. Yeah, I was looking forward to sweet rationing coming off.
I was going to say, because you're 12, 13 years old, sugar rationing must have been a horrific part. I mean, when you look back, can you believe it was 70 years ago?
No, I can't. No, it's just flown. Yes, I wonder where it's gone.
So, Mona, what do you remember of VE Day?
Well, we lived in the country, and my friend and I cycled into Ramsey, and we had a good day, and we went to the pictures. We went to the pictures at the plaza, and we saw a film called The Golden Earrings, and Margaret Lockwood and Stuart Granger was in it. And then we came out and there was dancing at the town hall. We were dancing there, and it was lovely.
You seem to remember it like it was just yesterday.
I do remember it, yes, I do.
Yesterday morning at 2:41 a.m. at General Eisenhower's headquarters, General Jodl, the representative of the German High Command, and of Grand Admiral Dönitz, the designated head of the German state, signed the act of unconditional surrender of all German land, sea, and air forces in Europe to the Allied Expeditionary Force.
And Elsie, you are from Douglas. What was going on in Douglas on VE Day?
Well, actually, I'd gone to bed, actually. And my aunt woke me up and said, it's all over. We're all going down the promenade to celebrate Douglas prom. And it was packed out, and this sailor got up on the Jubilee clock. He was there, so that's it, really.
He was so excited he climbed the clock.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody was cheering and,
Now, Maura, you were 16 when VE Day came. What do you remember of the night?
Just that we were down at Parliament Square dancing. They had music on and, everybody was very happy.
Do you remember what you were dancing to? Do you remember the music?
No, I can't. No, I'm afraid that's a bit too far back for me to remember.
What had the war been like for you?
Well, we were lucky over here, really, we didn't feel it so much, really, Mind you, we had the rationing and all, but...
Just 16, though. What were you most excited about that the war is over? I suppose, what was the biggest thing that you were relieved about?
All the bombing away. It was dreadful to think of how the people were over there, They were putting white flags out in the end. We used to hear them going over to Ireland to bomb.
You could hear that from your house?
Yes, they used to go over us, But,
was it scary?
I think I was too young to to take it in too much, you know, but it was frightening, you know. It must have been dreadful out in England, really, you know. I wouldn't have liked to have lived out there.
What else do you remember from the war in terms of your own experiences?
When we were at school, we used to go collecting blackberries and fruit for the Russian Abbey to make jam of. And we also collected hips and horse, so they made the horse hip syrup. And that was all sent away.
Where was it sent to?
I don't know exactly where it would be sent to, but I doubt very much if it was done on the island. I would think we'd have to go across. But we used to collect them in the autumn, and that was times that you remember, because it was a day out from school or an afternoon, and we got away from lessons.
Do you think it's almost weird that you always have happy memories from what was a horrific time in history?
Well, it was a horrific time in history, but we were fortunate on the island because we didn't suffer any bombings. A stray bomb hit one of the fields out in the north here, but we didn't suffer what they suffered. We didn't have, we were rationed quite severely, but if you're able to grow your own vegetables, which a lot of people did, they turned their gardens into allotments and so forth. But no, there were, I suppose in a small mind, there were worrying times at times, but other than that, no, we spent, because we were able to go on the beach and on the Murrock Promenade, that's where the internees were. We couldn't walk on the promenade itself, but we could walk on the beach and play in the water and so forth, so that was nice.
Were you aware of what was going on across the world?
Yes, definitely. We listened avidly to the news. Yes, parents and that were glued to the sets when the news came on. They had to be very, very quiet. Yes. Yeah, no television.
Did you get in trouble if you started talking over the radio?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, yes.
We must now devote all our strength and resources to the completion of our tasks, both at home and abroad. Advance, Britannia! Long live the cause of freedom! God save the King!
Well, as I say, we are joined today by the local musician and singer Ruth Keggin, who's just returned from a tour in Arctic Norway. Ruth, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. What was that we're just listening to?
You're listening to a piece called Incan ons Bethlehem, or Igan ons Bethlehem, which means baby in Bethlehem, and it's a traditional Manx Gaelic carvel, which I arranged with my trio.
And how would you describe your musical style?
Oh, wow. Mainly traditional, I guess, but there's quite a lot of influences that come in to my music, partly due to what I grew up listening to. I did listen to a lot of traditional music, but I listened to lots of other types of music, and I also grew up playing in things like Manx Youth Orchestra, Manx Youth Choir, and studying classical music as well, so I do have those kind of influences on me as well, so a bit of a hodgepodge, but mostly traditional.
And just tell me about the band you formed at university.
Okay, so the band I formed at university, who I've just been on tour with, called Nish as Rish, which is a kind of derivation of the phrase Nish as Rish in Manx Gaelic, which means now and again. There's 5 of us, and we formed when I was asked to put together a group for someone's sort of final year project, and they were doing this big concert for school children all over York, which is where we studied. And they said, oh, well, could you put something together, some music from the Isle of Man or Ireland or Scotland. And so that's how the group formed. We loved it so much that we thought, wait, we could do something here really, and we could do our own compositions and arrangements of trad music. And it just started there really.
I just wonder when you first discovered that you could sing. I mean, you have an incredible voice. When did you discover a talent like that?
Well, guess I sung a lot around the house when I was little. Not really out in public, apart from probably, well, growing up through going to chapel. I went to the Howe Chapel in Port St Mary when I was little, from a very young age, and there's a really great sort of singing kind of thing going on there, and I got a lot of opportunity to get up and sing, there, but not really properly until I was just in my first year of university, and I struggled with tendinitis in my wrist, so I went as a flautist to university, and I wasn't able to play the flute because I had so much problems with my wrist, so many problems that I basically almost had to give up the flute for a while, the flute and the piano, just until things got better. And I had thought about singing, but I just didn't know whether, actually, well, was I good enough? And then I was at a festival in France, in Brittany, in Lorient. I was there helping out with the Manx Pavilion because I could speak French. And someone heard me sing and just invited me up to the stage, and it was this Breton guitarist who I then discovered was quite well known after this, and got up and sang with him, and I was just a really good positive response that I was a bit overwhelmed with, and I went back and I thought, oh, maybe I can give the singing thing a go then, and I spoke to them at university, and the head of studies was, yeah, why not sing in Gaelic? That's absolutely fine. There's no problem with that. And they were so open to it that, yeah, so I did.
I love the fact that you just got up and sang on stage. I can't think of anything more daunting or scary for the audience, perhaps, than being asked to do something like that. I mean, your heart must have been in your mouth.
It was a bit terrifying, yeah. I mean, especially doing something like singing where I hadn't done that much sort of singing solo, and really... I'd done a lot of, I'd played solo and things, I'd played the flute solo, I'd played the piano solo through things like the Guilds and, other concerts, and as I say, school and Manx Youth Orchestra, Manx Youth Choir, I'd had opportunities, but yeah, that was a bit of a heart in the mouth, are they going to like it kind of moment, and then they did, so. Yeah.
And something that's really just almost changed the course of what you've done.
Yeah. So it was the silver lining to the tendinitis cloud, I think, kind of finding out that people liked my singing, and I mean, I've always loved singing as well. As I say, I grew up listening to an awful lot of vocal music, a lot of bands like Kappa Cayley, who is a Scottish band with this incredible singer called Karen Matheson, sings in Gaelic, and a lot of Sean Nose singing. And Sean Nose is is Irish sort of singing style, means old style, and yeah, my dad listened to an awful lot of that sort of stuff, and so I guess it kind of just seeped into me. My mum sang to me a lot when I was a child as well. Yeah.
You mentioned that you can speak French. Can you speak Manx fluently?
Not fluently, no, but I'm still learning a lot, like a lot of people here. But I'm good conversationally and things. Yeah, just getting there. Yeah.
And why would you say that you're so focused on sharing the Manx language, Manx music with people?
I think it's just it's another part of what makes our island really special, and for me as well, like the language side of things really kind of helps me connect with my own heritage. My whole family are from the island, and I've got some Scottish blood as well on my mum's side, but mostly like on my dad's side, I know that they go back to Cregnish, is where my ancestors are from, and I know they were monoglot speakers of Manx, so they didn't have any English at one point. And I thought, oh wow, if I went back a couple of 200 or 300 years or whatever and met them, I'd be able to speak to them, and that'd be really interesting, So yeah, I think it's that, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, the music and the language and the dance and everything we've got going for us on our island. It's just another reason to sort of shout about it and say, hey, we're ace.
Thanks as always to our amazing guests. And as ever, it's never too late for you to get involved. Head over to Facebook, find the Women Today Facebook page, and you can comment there, or you can follow us at MR Women Today on Twitter. And you can listen again to the full programmes on manxradio.com, or join us every weekday live from just after 2:00.
Women Today, brought to you by citywing.com for your next flight away.